I think that's kind of all what we're thinking about right now. Welcome to episode 56.1 of Clips and Dip. I am Chuck Mockler. We're doing the weekend hang. Will Updike, Adam Osland at Clippers Pod on Twitter if you want to follow us there. We're hanging out. Adam, we talked about the Wizards game last night. We're going to talk about the Russ injury, the looming back-to-back, what we think the Clippers are going to go in March. But Will, you weren't talking with Adam last night. How are you feeling with the Russ news? How did it feel to see he's unfortunately fractured his hand?
It's super hard, especially with the guy that needed to fill so many minutes and had that crucial role of sort of bringing energy to the team. So, firstly, wishing a quick recovery and health for him, because he is definitely someone that the Clippers will need, moving forward. It does beg questions about, what this means for the rest of the rotation, how some other guys could kind of could get going or get opportunities, and what that could look like for them and how that changes potential rotations moving forward, even into the playoffs. So, we'll see.
Yeah, 22 minutes a game that they got to find now with Russ out. Did not mean to thumbs up losing 22 minutes a game right there. Adam, Bones Highland got some run last night. For those of you who missed, the Clippers beat the Wizards.
140 to 115.
Yeah, smoked them, thankfully. How are we feeling about Bones? Obviously, I think it's hard to judge last night because it was a get in there and go on the shortest of notice. But what are you looking for from Bones just in general? It's kind of a different player than Russ.
Yeah, I mean, those were the first somewhat meaningful minutes that he has played. I don't think he's played in the first half of a game, and I know he didn't either last night, but going back to game 4 or 5 of the season before they brought in James Harden. But remember, and we've talked about it, in the first 4 games, he had 17 or more 3 times. Bones Highland absolutely looked the part of where he was in the preseason, what they were saying about him during training camp. Everyone on the Clippers said the one guy that impressed them most in Hawaii in training camp that they saw progress and develop was Bones Highland. I mean, Nicholas Batum was saying it back when he was with the Clippers, obviously now with Philadelphia. This is somebody, and we hope for a speedy recovery from Russ because it's going to be really difficult to replace somebody that's been kind of an innings eater for them and Mr. Reliable. He hadn't missed a game all season long. He was the only Clipper who had not missed a game. So it's big. You mentioned those 22 minutes, but what we saw last night in 16 minutes there in the second half from Bones Highland, I was encouraged with the passing. He had 7 assists to 1 turnover, and he had a couple of passes, the lob to Kobe Brown, the wraparound pass underneath the basket to Brandon Boston, who gave him some good minutes as well. Granted, it was inconsequential garbage time, but these were guys that looked better if we're going to criticize when they're bad during garbage time, I guess we also have to say when they're good, right?
Fair. Completely fair.
But Bones was in control of the basketball, taking care of it, bringing it up the court with pace. That's something the Clippers need. That's something Russ has always brought. And look, I've been talking about trying to get Bones Highland back into the rotation for some time. I did not want to see it happen like this, obviously. But I do think with March, 16 games remaining now, they needed a spark. They needed somebody to give them a shot in the arm. Terrence Mann, with his play over the last 4 games, has been supplying some of that. But just having some young legs and a guy who's, 23 years of age, who's legitimately young on this team, should be able to go have plenty of energy in back-to-backs with all of these 3 and 4s coming up. Bones Highland could be perfect for that. Now, you mentioned where he's at and missing those shots, just 1 for 7 from the field. That's somewhat expected. You get your first run in a long time. I'm not that concerned about it. I do think he's a guy that can catch fire quickly, that can be one shot hot. And this is someone who doesn't shy away from taking shots. We're talking about a guy who, when he's on the floor next to PG and Kawhi, he doesn't defer. He doesn't just try to give up the basketball. He makes the right play, but he's looking for his offense too. And that's something the defense is going to have to be concerned with. He puts pressure on you because he's going to take shots. I think some of the numbers were ran last summer about Bones Highland by the Lob the Jam, and they were talking about how many attempts he gets up from three per 100 possessions. And it was somewhere like 12 or 13. So Paul George type of stuff from three. Like he puts them up and he does it at a high volume and a high efficiency. And he can off the bounce. This is a really rare guy with a unique skill set that has a ton of potential for this Clippers team. So overall, it's awful. It sucks for Russ. The word you used last night on Clips and Double Dip with myself and Carlo Jimenez, who was doing Clippers talk with me. You said gutted. You said gutted for Russ, and I think that's where we're all kind of at right now, Chuck.
Will, do you think you got me on the train of kind of being against the 6-minute shifts for Harden to open the game? That's got to change now, right? Like we got to imagine that Harden's going to be in. I mean, this at least on Sunday and Monday in to start the game a little longer.
Well, yeah, both with the shortage and the number of games, I think it's kind of interesting to see what could a playoff shift look like for this starting unit if that's what they have to end up going to. Which with how many games there are and how look like there's no way around it. Sometimes they're going to need to gut out wins, and sometimes they might drop a couple, and it's going to be like, all right, we got to play this like it is one of the most important games of the season just to not fall too far down in the standings. So I think that's really interesting to see how they'll change that because I don't see Ty going away from Harden halfway through the first to put Bones Highland in just to keep with that regular rotation. Unless, of course, that is just sort of an unspoken thing where maybe they don't want James to get, 9 minutes a run in his first shift. I'm not sure, but I would assume that we'll see longer sort of uninterrupted stretches of that starting unit. And I would guess that that would change things to Russ being the Norm rather being the de facto sort of 6-man first guy in for sub in.
Because that shift does let Harden do things like he did last night, which is basically play the entire second quarter and completely, go off or something like that. And if Fian has a question, did they ever say how long Russ will be out for?
Indefinite, I believe, is the timeline, isn't it?
Yeah, and there was that Twitter NBA doctor who everyone likes who does do a very good job said 6 weeks or something is the
that sounds about right.
Time. So yeah, that sucks.
That would mean basically he's out the rest of the regular season. Their final game of the regular season is April 14th. So a month and a half. It's around then.
Adam, how would you feel? This is from Izzy. Shout out to everyone hanging out in the chat as well. Throw some questions in. We'll put them on. How would you feel if the turnover issues and transition defense improved with Russ out?
It might. There are ways to lean into offense now with spreading the floor better because you have another shooter out there with Bones Highland. What they'll be missing, though, is some of that Russ defense, the rebounding, obviously. And there's a little bit of an issue. One of the reasons we talked about why Bones Highland hasn't gotten run, I think, is because you can't have him and Norman Powell, or you would not lean into having him and Norman Powell on the court at the same time because defensively your point of attack defense is really going to suffer just because both those guys are very much undersized. Now, the story coming into training camp, part of it was Bones put on 11, 12 pounds of muscle, and he has some wiry strength to him. I was impressed with his defense overall last season when they brought him in from Denver. We heard a lot of things from Denver fans saying, oh, he just checks out defensively. We didn't see that. He competed in that playoff series against the Phoenix Suns and for the most part wasn't a huge liability defensively on that end. As long as he's giving effort there, they can live with it because of what he can bring offensively. But I do think this throws in a few different wrinkles lineup-wise. We mentioned him and the fit next to Norman Powell being problematic. But what if all of a sudden they brought Norman Powell in with the starters for Terrence Mann because of that? So you don't have Powell coming off the bench with Bones Highland. Or what if Bones Highland is struggling and it's not working? Then do you bring Terrence Mann off the bench and maybe start Amir Coffey so Mann runs the second unit as the backup point guard if Bones just isn't there yet? There's a lot of things to think about here. I hope Bones, takes the bull by the horns here and takes advantage of this big opportunity. And I think he's that guy. He's him. He can do this. I think Bones, when the kids say is built different, he's one of those guys. He's special. He has a lot of ability out there. We talked about it when they first got him, having some of those Lou Williams traits with the pick and roll. It's not just his frame, but not afraid of taking and making tough shots. He's got a lot in his bag. And the The other thing about him, going back to last season, was he was actually shooting better, I think, from the outside than where he was within 10 feet of the basket or something like that. His problems were he wasn't finishing well at the rim. Well, he worked on that. We saw it change in the preseason. We saw it change in the first 4 games this season. He was much more comfortable among the trees and getting it to go in traffic, getting layups to go. So I felt like coming into this year, he was – I used the unfortunate phrase. I'm not even going to do it now. It is a saying. It is a phrase. It's also something in finances, not just in cards, I guess, on the come. And that's why I watch MSNBC all the time. You guys know.
We knew that it was not. We knew that it was not just in cards. Believe me, we knew.
Yeah, we had some alternate routes.
But it felt to me like he was due for a breakout season. And he has an opportunity now to show everything he's been working on over the past year.
Yeah, the first person off the bench thing is going to be interesting. Rock Thaus saying, rather start Coffee, put Man to the bench. But Man, as we are going to see, especially against, I think, the Bucks, is the point of attack guy to start games. He's defending the point of attack to start games. Amir Coffee is good at defense, but there's the wingspan thing, and Terrence, they're just comfortable with him being the point of attack guy. And that's, I mean, we shouldn't change a part of the starting lineup that doesn't need to be changed, right? Like we don't.
Yeah, when we
is
lost somebody who's taking up significant minutes, my first thought isn't let's make another change. Personally,
that's
just me.
But I do think it's real. If Bones struggled, you might have to bring Terrence Mann off the bench to run the second unit. I don't think that will be a huge drop-off having Amir Coffee as the point of attack defender to start off games as opposed to Terrence Mann. I think they're pretty similar with their overall defense.
I do like this point, though, because he's been playing phenomenally. So I think if you bench Terrence Mann after this run, talk about someone's confidence being messed with throughout the year.
Well, it's out of necessity. It's out of this emergency situation because Russ is out. This isn't because of poor play. It could actually give him more minutes because we need you even more now as the second biggest ball handler on this team besides James Harden.
I'm just saying, I don't think we should switch the starting lineup. The starting lineup is very good. And the bench.
I don't want them to have to. I'm saying if Bones Highland struggles and he can't do it, who's the second best primary ball handler?
I mean, how many games are we giving Bones before we entertain possibly getting Man? Because I mean, it's time crunch, right?
I hope at least 5.
Yeah, I'm like, I mean, he's like we said, he's gone from 0 playing to now maybe the backup point guard. So like, I think 5 games because they're coming pretty quickly, right? We got 3 and 4 days coming up. So I hope he can pick it up quickly. Some other things that happened in the Wizards game. Paul George was back. Looked great.
He looked the best he has in over a month now. Timing wise, he got to the basket his first couple. The athleticism was there. The pop, he was very decisive with getting to his spots, getting them up quickly. He wasn't playing with his food, playing with the basketball, dribbling, over dribbling. That performance by PG-13 was very encouraging. It's weird, but every time he has come back from injury, that first game, he always looks fantastic. Going back to his first game as a Clipper, when he was coming off shoulder surgery, I think it was against the Pelicans, and he had 36 or 38 or something like that.
Yeah, it was good to see. Will and I were hanging out and reading the kind of pregame quotes about the injury, which I don't know if the full answer on Ty Lue on PG, I believe this was pregame, was, hopefully right now he's in a good place. We did all the necessary things we had to do to check the boxes. He's feeling pretty good. Hopefully not a thing that lingers on for the rest of the season, but we don't really know. It's basically a day-to-day situation. We're not 100% sure if he's going to play in both games on the back-to-back, which I don't think should be super surprising, right? Like, he's coming off a week off because of knee soreness. It's day-to-day. Playing him 2 games in a row. I hope he plays the Wolves game because that's a conference game. But I don't think it's that crazy to think that he wouldn't play both games. Like, it wasn't, I don't know. Will, you and I were kind of bummed, but I wouldn't say shocked.
Yeah. I with it being day-to-day, I would assume that means that he's not playing in back-to-backs, but we'll see. He did look a lot better. The first time he's crossed the 20-point barrier in what feels like a very long time. But no, it's good to see him back out there. But I would assume how many games played is he even at right now? Well, whatever. Right? I mean, it seems pretty clear that he wants to get to that 65 number. So I think they're going to do their best to get to that spot, but I would expect to see him, sort of in and out of the lineup to manage that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's what we all want. And what matters is April.
Yeah,
30th, right.
Not March.
Not March. I am maddened by it. This is a good point by Steve Rodriguez about the Bones thing, bringing in Norm earlier to play with the starters, and then T-Man and Bones back in together.
I think that could be exactly what they do.
Love
because,
that, Steve.
The point is, you may not want to switch up the starting lineup. What you really don't want, though, is Norman Powell and Bones to be playing heavy minutes together.
Right.
That's the priority here. Those two, you'll be trying to outscore teams, and there's going to be good runs. But defensively, they're going to suffer on that end with both those guys at the point of attack. So I think what Steve is saying here could be spot on.
Shout out Steve Rodriguez. Thank you, William Blast. Some other stuff from the Wizards game before we move on in a bit. So the offense, great. The big three absolutely killed it last night. The transition defense, for me personally, didn't exactly instill confidence going forward for this back-to-back. The few times, look, it was the Wizards, it was a blowout. But the few times that the Wizards were able to get within, I don't know, striking might even be too big of a word just because the team was so bad. But, it was the transition defense. Ty Lue talked about it post-game and stuff like that. Is this just a time thing? Do we just have to wait for them to get more locked in on this? Adam, what did you think? Because I was like, yeah, we got the win, but there were just some moments where it was like, this isn't.
They really have to lock in on it because it's not just that they've been bad with it, but the book is out on that and teams are zeroing in. So they're putting an emphasis always on getting down the court. And actually, Washington, I think, is playing at the fastest pace in the NBA this season. They at least were over the last month. So it was a concerted effort by them to make sure to get down the floor, and they have the young bodies to do so. I think it was early in the third quarter where Coach Lue actually called a timeout after some poor transition defense, even with the Clippers up big. He was upset, understandably, by seeing that still being an issue for them. They talk about it. The message is there. The guys, at one point, it has to get through because Jordan Poole got a couple of really easy ones against the Clippers last night. It got better after that timeout in the third quarter, but against the next two teams, they're going to be trying the same thing with the Milwaukee Bucks and Minnesota Timberwolves, at least here and there, picking your spots, when to beat up on the Clippers, biggest weakness, really.
Yeah, that and the rebounding. Thankfully, we didn't get out-rebounded last night because the Wizards are, and I mean this in no hyperbole, the worst rebounding team in the league.
They're the worst team in the league.
I mean, they really are. I still my brain can't comprehend seeing their record on the screen. I'm like, how are you 9-51? It just doesn't.
If you look at their last 14 games, though, the 14 straight that they have lost, it is one of the worst schedules I've ever seen. I don't think they play one team that's not 5 games above 500. Yeah, it's insane.
Rock Thales talking about that. Will, how can we make the rebounding better? Are we sitting in the bad rebounding team bed that we've made for the rest of this season and just hope that Zoo being back makes us that much better?
I think to the regular season to a certain extent, I think that you expect that some of that to be ironed out a little bit more once you get deeper into the season and certainly into the postseason as Kawhi and Paul George will put that as a even bigger point of emphasis, really kind of putting it all on the line for that. But yeah, rebounding is going to be a struggle, and it's only gotten worse this season because of some of the size, and then losing probably your best rebounding guard isn't going to help for this upcoming stretch. So it's going to be difficult.
Chuck, we talked about it a little bit post game, but I felt like this was one of the better performances with no Big Zoo from their backup bigs and Mason Plumlee and Daniel Tice. I think Big Plum ended up with 10 boards. I really like some of the defense he showed actually in that third quarter because remember, before the fourth quarter against the Lakers with those back-to-back turnovers, He was actually having one of his best games of the season. So he's had 7, I would say, quality quarters over the last couple of games now.
Yeah. William Blass is asking, how long will Russ be out? Right now it's indefinitely. It's around 6 weeks probably. That's what everyone's kind of saying. There's levels to fractures. So he's also broken this hand one other or two other times. Like he's broken.
Yikes.
Like, yeah, like it's not the first time. Yeah.
He's
it
got
really
some
sucks.
mangled fingers. It's not,
Yeah.
Chubbs
That's why
and
his
Happy
shot,
Gilmore, but
thankfully.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Well, that was also one of the reasons why people talked about his shot kind of going. He had broken hands, and as someone who was an apologist for Ivica Zubac's first year on the Clippers when he had a broken finger on each hand, I can't imagine what it's like to break both of your hands and then try and relearn how to play basketball. Yeah, he's basically out until the playoffs, which is brutal. Adam, was there anything else from last night? It was such a weird game to try and take stuff away from. I tweeted this out, right? But it's like they collapse on Wednesday against the Lakers. Then you beat a team you're absolutely supposed to beat in the Wizards. It's hard to take anything super away from that game, I guess.
I'll say this. They played with the right type of energy, aside from a few miscues, as you would expect with transition defense. For the most part, they played up to their ability against a team that's this down right now. Kyle Kuzma had his moments, but the big three for the Clippers, you saw Paul George with 11 points in the first quarter, and then you have James Harden with 21 points in that second quarter, and then Kawhi with 14 points in the third quarter. The big three were really good, and it looked to me like they were upset with what happened against that Lakers game, as they should be. Kawhi Leonard with 3 or 4 dunks, 2 of them, one over the top of Kyle Kuzma to end the second quarter, another one about the 3-minute mark in the third quarter in traffic where he just turned the corner and threw it down. There was a little bit something extra there from a team that knew they let one get away up 21 in the fourth quarter against the Los Angeles Lakers. And Kawhi was moving fantastically. James Harden showed a little bit more burst like we saw against the Lakers too. So maybe they're coming out of this funk of just looking a little bit stagnant out there offensively because they moved the ball really well. There was a possession, and I think you even retweeted it after I tweeted out, Chuck, on the Clippers pod, but there was some beautiful passing from this team along the perimeter like we haven't seen in a while. And they shot about 41% from the outside. I think they were at 56% from 3 in the first half. When the last 8 games going into that game last night, the Clippers were shooting just 33% from 3, which is alarming for a team that has been first or second all season long when it came to 3-point shooting. So some of that alone just going back in their favor, and I'm sure some of it is just wonky shooting and shooting variance. They were due, but that can cure a lot of what has ailed them recently. Just getting back to knocking down threes, which they should. They have the personnel, and they've been one of the best teams all season long there.
I didn't realize they were at 33%.
It's shocking, right?
That's crazy.
For them?
Yeah. Will, if the Clippers would have won by 50, would you have felt better, or do you feel exactly the same about this game, no matter who it was, because it was the Wizards?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's the Wizards, and it's you wouldn't be thrilled. You would be kind of upset if it was a close win just because it is the Wizards and it would have meant that the defense was really, really bad. But it's kind of where this team is at, right? Especially if they want to stay in that top 3, top 4 kind of thing. Like these wins are expected. And so you hope to see something good. And certainly not expecting to lose a player. But I was talking earlier about how Bones could be sort of a shot in the arm for the Clippers. And I think just overall the absence of Russ is going to kind of put everyone on notice because we've heard time and time again how we feel like this team, internally kind of feels like they're not always locking in and they're sort of relying on talent. And so when you have a big piece of the rotation go down, it gets it in everybody else's head. And it kind of, I think that it makes you have to, like by necessity, approach the game with a different level of attention to detail and sort of a different mindset.
And that's been like one of the trademarks of this team in this era, fighting through adversity with guys being out. This is what they do. This is typically when they are at their best. So I love that point, Will. I do think it gets your attention more, and they should be more focused out there. And I think you saw some of that last night in the second half where they made sure to pour it on and get the starters out midway through the fourth quarter. As much as you can say, oh, it's the Wizards. Look, they almost beat the Lakers the night before. It went to OT. They've been in some of these games. So to blow them out to that extent, I do think there were some encouraging signs, but obviously we're going to find out a lot about this team in the next 2.
Wonderful transition, Adam. We're going to talk about the upcoming. Almost like he does this for a living, folks. I don't know why it's giving the thumbs down, Adam. I did not mean to do that.
It's opposite day.
We're going to talk about the hardest back-to-back of the season until the next one, I assume. If you're listening to this pod, because we are going to put this out on audio, thanks for listening. If you're watching, there's going to be a very awkward pause really quickly because sometimes the ads are loud. So we tell people on audio to turn it down. We're talking the most difficult back-to-back coming up after these ads in 3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome back into Clips and Dip. That is, if you're listening on audio. If you're viewing live, as you should be, over on youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast, we never left. Chuck's got some great background stuff going on. Adam's trying. He's not getting anywhere with that, though. All right, so we talked about the Clippers getting the win over the Wizards. Now we look ahead to just an absolutely brutal back-to-back. We take on the Timberwolves and then the Bucks. Rough kind of Sunday, Monday there. I guess let's start with the Timberwolves, because the last time this team we thought was in a position to really make a statement or have kind of a big win, that is not the way things went down against the Timberwolves.
That is not the way things went down against the Timberwolves. I want to address something in the chat real quick, though, from Alfredo Rodriguez. My question is the fear of PJ Tucker, joining an opponent the Clippers cannot defeat the reason why they won't buy him out, to the point they're bowing out of the buyout market? No. PJ Tucker is refusing to waive his next year's $11 million. And so if the Clippers bought him out for the 20 whatever million dollars, they would not be able to trade that contract. They won't be able to do anything. And
it's not even about the money. It's just the cap hit, like, with second apron stuff and everything, having a cap hit of $11 million. The $11 million in and of itself doesn't really matter, but the cap hit certainly does.
I'll say this for PJ last night. He doesn't play at all in that ball game after turning down the shot against the Lakers and getting a real opportunity. He was up cheering guys on. He was calling for that review that Coach Lou challenged at one point. He was still engaged with the team. He wasn't making a stink. So I think that's all you can ask right now. And by the way, who knows? In these next two, they're going up against two big teams. He knows about Giannis Antetokounmpo. They don't have Russ. And now that means if you do have PJ out there next to Plum, well, you do have still three other shooters most likely next to them. We've talked about it, but it's not like he's been put in the best position yet in some of these lineups. They need to surround him with shooters to really give him a fair shot. But I understand they're trying to get other guys minutes right now too and keep them all involved. So we'll see what happens.
Last time we played the Wolves, they forced the mid-range on us. This is what bigger teams do. We're probably going to hear about this a ton in the pregame from Brian Seaman, all those people. We just got to hope, like, Kawhi's built to beat that, right? But I mean, I hate to harp on it because I feel like I bring it up like every other episode, but Harden's got to hit these mid-range shots if we're going to have a chance to beat the Wolves.
I'll say this, though, as much as they're giving up the mid-range, it's just like, well, they're not doubling. They still have really good man-to-man defenders that aren't exactly just letting you walk into those shots with guys guarding Kawhi Leonard still very closely.
Yeah, but I mean, Harden's still, so far this year, like the worst percentage in 10 years.
No, from it's completely fair.
Will, what are you looking for? Are we going to go small again? Like, we've gone small against the Wolves, but I don't, with Russ as that cog and things like that. So it's going to be odd, I think.
Well, I mean, I think that, I do think that Ty will probably play with some small ball again as well, just depending on the performances that we're able to get out of Tice and Plumlee, certainly, and how that looks. I think you may go small. And I actually think that that's kind of where PJ would be best, is not even next to another center at all. But if we opt to go small, have him at the 5. I mean, he's at the stage of his career right now where he's not really a 4 anymore. He's like kind of a stretchy 5, I guess. That's just where his skill set is at. So I think that could be effective for him if Ty Lue does opt to go that way. I'm just curious, how we can slow this team down, because to me that has been like the biggest sort of, that's what's made the Timberwolves look the most beatable to me, right? Like, I don't feel like their offenses, or at least shouldn't be, on the level of what this Clippers team can put out. So Can the defense be better than what we've seen? Can we build off of the win against the Wizards? That's what I'm going to be looking to see. That's going to be the biggest one.
Things have unraveled, especially in that last game, which I think was a little bit more representative just because they had Ivica Zubac, who was still on a minutes restriction. We are hoping he's back for the game on Sunday. That's vital, obviously. But they unraveled midway through the third quarter. It was a 1-point game after Russ hit a three-pointer, but then he had a really tough stretch to end that third quarter, and the Clippers were all of a sudden, I think, down by 17 heading into the fourth. Like, they were right there. They were up by 4 at the half. They were playing much better. Ant got going. Karl Anthony Towns got going. Ant, especially in both third quarters, has really burned the Clippers to start the second half.
In the paint, too. Law Murray tweeted out, the Clippers have been very good at making his shot difficult from the outside. He was 7 for 7 in the paint last game against the Clips. So when he gets into the paint, it's kind of an issue for the Clippers. And we still don't know if Paul George is going to play in this one.
Yeah. And that paint scoring was huge for the Wolves. I think they outscored us by like 20 points in the paint, 64 to 42 in favor of the Wolves, and we lost by 20. So
yeah. Yeah, and there's no real update on Zoo, right? It's just kind of like he's been battling the fever for the last week, and he hopes to be there. Yeah,
take a little baby Tums, you'll be fine.
Take a little baby Tums. Carl Tart, Adam, I don't know if you missed this part on the live after the Lakers game, but Carl Tart blamed Zoo for getting sick for the Clippers losing. I
don't know why. I don't know why you would choose to do that.
Why would you choose to get sick?
He doesn't have enough built-up antibodies. What's wrong with him?
He's not washing his hands,
yeah, like Howard Hughes.
Yeah, how come, dude? Zoo Hughes? That would be crazy. Zeus, yeah. Howard Zeus.
I'm hoping he's okay because I was a little bit surprised that he wasn't able to go last night. So I think that speaks to the sickness going on right now.
Yeah, hopefully he's not too down with the sickness and he can travel with the team for the games on Sunday and Monday. Yeah. What else are we kind of looking for in this Timberwolves? It's so funny because we've played them. I mean, we're going to play them again in like a week and a half, right, after this. So
pick on Mike Conley.
Please.
It's not that he is a bad defender. He's just undersized, and he's the best option to go at. It's that simple because they're that good defensively. They are elite. They've been like this all season long. This isn't some Johnny come lately. All of a sudden, they turned a corner defensively. They have been consistently the best defensive team by a lot. And the personnel's there. This is a better team surrounding Rudy Gobert than what he had in Utah. They have better defensive personnel around him. It's not just him. They got guys all over the place that can slow you down.
Yeah, this is an interesting point from Wayne Jenkins, which is actually kind of nuts. The Clippers are 1.5-point favorites, which they're away, which really doesn't make any sense. Don't take that bet. I don't know. That seems kind of nuts, right? Will, how could you, Will, if you had to argue that the Clippers are 1.5 point, if you're this house, this betting manor, how is Updike Betting Manor pitching that the Clippers are 1.5-point favorites?
Got a lot of faith in my guys. That's why.
I mean,
especially because the Wolves just lost in overtime at home last night to the Sacramento Kings. They're going to be more upset. It could be more of an issue going into their place.
Or that's the loss that completely unravels them.
That's true. Yeah, I like where Will. Let me place a bet with the Updike Betting Manor. All right. So who is is it just the Kawhi Leonard Player of the Game award now because we need Kawhi? Like we can't not pick Kawhi. I feel like for this game because this game. I talked about this on one of the episodes we did. It's like kind of annoying sometimes, but at some point you need your number one guys to just be your number one guys and go hit the shot against it. And I know we try and not reduce things that much on this show, but in a game like this where it's so tight and we're down a guy, we're working in a new point guard or whatever it's going to be, we do just need the big three to be efficient and go up.
Kawhi's been solid the first 2 games against Minnesota. Paul George, James Harden have not been good enough so far against them, period. They have to be better. So hopefully Paul George is able to go. But I think we talked about this before. You're looking for answers with the Clippers team that now is 4-5 their last 9 games. They improve after last night. But a team struggling that much offensively going into last night. They were bottom 10 offense all of a sudden last 8 games. We've talked about it. Like, if James Harden isn't at his best, and I said this earlier in the season, I think it was after his first game against the Lakers, but while we say, well, he's the third option on this Clippers team, and in a playoff series that kind of mitigates some of the lows he has had, you don't have to worry about it as much on this Clippers team. But when you're running the offense, saying that guy that starts things off, that sets the table, is third offensively isn't quite true. Like, he may be the third best scorer or the third most important scorer on the team, but he has to get them into their offense. He has to be a prototypical traditional point guard out there, and especially in big games like this against Minnesota, where they can't be stagnant, where they can't slowly walk into their offense. They have to be better with making those quick decisions. And I think that was part of the problem during this down portion of the season. They just haven't been getting into their offense quickly enough. Coach Lou said, we look slow out there. They're waiting too long. Kawhi hasn't been as good either attacking right away or passing before the double comes as well. He's got to be sharper there.
Will, are you agreeing with Scott Tran? If we get PG in 13 we got last night, we got a good chance of winning.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm hoping PG's a little more efficient. I think all of us want that. He probably will be if he plays again. If we're fully healthy, I think the Clippers can do it. We just need the top guys to be the top guys. And now we move on to the game right after the one against the Wolves. We're playing the Bucks, and Clippers' old friend Doc Rivers has the Bucks on a 5-game win streak. They've run a gamut of teams they've beat. They beat the Wolves, they beat the 76ers, they beat the Hornets twice, and then they beat the Bulls. So they're showing that they can beat either end of the ability spectrum right now. Giannis had 46, 16, and 6 in his last game. He's been on kind of a terrorizing stretch. I'll open this up. What are we doing with Giannis?
Kawhi
on him to start?
I think it'll be by committee. Like, you'll see Zoo. If Zoo's available, he'll be on Giannis some. If Paul George is available, he'll be on Giannis some. Mir Coffey, Terrence Mann, maybe even PJ Tucker in that game. He's obviously practiced against him plenty. He knows him very well. The last 5 games, you mentioned the 5-game winning streak, they have the best offense, or the second best offense and the best defense in the league, the Milwaukee Bucks. So as predicted, of course, by the time the Clippers get to them, they're going to have figured things out. But they haven't had a true test. You mentioned some of the teams they've been beating. They haven't been the top-level competition overall. Overall,
2 of them were pretty close. Rock Doc says, let them get a big lead and let Doc embrace the force. With no Zoo, it might be close to that. And I think we kind of talked Terrence being the point of attack guy. He's going to be on Dame to open up this one, I'd have to imagine. Clippers routinely kind of put Damian Lillard in hell with multiple looks, but I think they'll be asking Terrence to start that off.
I mean, there's still Middleton out there. There's a lot of he's back, right? I believe.
Yeah, let me check. I think he played in their last game. Let me double check. Man, they held Chicago to 97 points. They did not. He was DNP last game.
Okay. That's the thing, though. They were a bottom 10 defense. Part of the reason people were wondering why, well, they have this great record. How can you fire the head coach? Defensively, they weren't there at all. They weren't playing, and apparently the head coach wasn't listening to the players and how they have always played defense and what has made them one of the best defenses in the league and how they won a championship. So that didn't help Adrian Griffin. But even Dame, I saw highlights last night. Somebody cut together how he's been playing defense during this winning streak. He looks different on that end. When you have less on your plate offensively, because he had to do so much with the Portland Trail Blazers, you're playing next to Giannis, Chris Middleton at times. Well, now you don't have to give as much offensively. You can use some of that energy on defense. So he still looks good out there when he wants to play defense.
Yes, I'm hoping we can make him so frustrated on offense that he doesn't want to play defense, because that sometimes is a little bit what happens with Dame.
Well, his efficiency is already kind of struggling this season as he kind of pivots into this new role and tries to figure that out. So I think that definitely does help the Clippers out. But yeah, Giannis is an issue that we've never really figured out in the 2-on-3 era. I mean, luckily it's not like we play them that much, so it has never been a huge issue. But I think one of the big things for the Bucks is like just having a cohesive defensive scheme. Like I like Adam said, like wondered why they were firing their coach, even despite doing so well. But I guess there was just no communication really on the defensive end, and it didn't seem like there was any cohesive plan or steps in place to try to remedy that. So we know Doc can do that. Is Kalamian still with them?
Oh, I don't know. Actually, that's a great call. Let me check. Why didn't we why didn't we trade for a Giannis stopper? Has anyone asked Lawrence Frank how come we didn't trade for a Giannis stopper or a Jokic stopper? Even?
You know,
we got PJ Tucker.
Daniel Tice has experience against Giannis too, being in the East for so long. Like, I know there is no Giannis stopper. Obviously, I get the joke, Chuck.
Get him out! Just get him.
Here's the Giannis stopper.
He's still on the Bucks. Rex Kalamian still. Sorry, Adam. Still the Bucks assistant coach.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The best thing the Clippers can do in that game is hit shots so they can set their defense. Like LeBron James, Giannis getting out and running in transition, that's when you have a problem. That's when all of a sudden you have to resort to trying to build a wall, and then he finds open shooters. If Giannis is going downhill, you're in trouble. So the Clippers offense just has to be there the next 2 games. Hit shots, sets your defense on the other end.
I thought one thing they did well against AD was the ball denial early in the game on AD. Anytime the ball was passed to AD, he did get fouled a couple times before it got there, but they let Anthony Davis know that even just getting the ball is going to be difficult for you. So when the ball's out of Giannis's hands, I hope we see the active hands in the passing lanes. And like, if we're going to get PJ out there, use a couple fouls or something on Giannis to make it difficult for him to just even receive the ball. Before he really gets a chance to go downhill, because this is a Bucks team that is very well constructed. They take a bunch of free throws, which worries me. That's not super ideal for the Clips, but I don't know. How confident are we in going 2-0 over this back-to-back? Well, I can see where I would love a split. Sign me up for a split. At this point,
I think my preferred split would be it would be great to get one on the Timberwolves, like especially the way that we've looked against teams above us, or I mean, hell, even close to us recently in the Western Conference standings. Getting a win over the Timberwolves to me is more than makes up for say a loss to the Bucks.
Yeah, loss to the Bucks where we just like rested everybody. It would be kind of hilarious.
I think a win over the Timberwolves would also boost morale, just seeing the standings and knowing that they still have a chance to get the top seed or a top 2 seed when it's going to be really difficult right now. I'm not conceding that they can't get a top 3 seed because they still can. There's still plenty of time left. March is very difficult. Yeah. But the one thing I already started thinking about is, if OKC jumps Minnesota and they're the 1 seed and the Clippers are the 4, that means in the second round they could get OKC, which I think is preferable, not great, but preferable to Denver or Minnesota in the second round, when then you'd have to play the other one in the Western Conference Finals, because if you're 4, if OKC is 1, that means Denver and Minnesota would take on each other and take one another out in the second round. So that's kind of where I am with things right now, but I don't think you need to give up on having a top 3 seed. Things are still close enough, and you still have 2 more against Minnesota. So you win the next one, that tiebreaker could still be in play with beating them that final time.
That's a good call. Yeah, I'm hoping for the same split. I think most people are optimistic that happens. Who's your player of the game in the Bucks game, Adam?
I think I'm going to go. I've talked myself into it. It's a wacky player of the game, Daniel Tice. Hey! I could see him getting the backup minutes against Giannis if he could slow him down at all. You play one good quarter against Giannis and slow him down just a little bit so he doesn't have 40 or 45 in the ball game. Like, that can be enough.
You get the game ball for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've highlighted 5 good seconds of defense before. I get 5 good minutes of defense against Giannis by Daniel Tice. I'll be happy.
Tice is going to take like 6 charges. He's just going to get destroyed.
He knows his tendencies.
I mean, that is what he would do. He's going to get dunked on and take 6 charges, but it's all gonna be good. Will, who is your Kawhi Leonard player of the game pick for the Bucks?
Terrence Mann.
I like that. He's
Terrence
gonna have
Mann.
to be really
we need a young guy. I like to go with a young guy on the second night of a back-to-back. They got the legs.
They got the legs. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Paul George. Paul George needs to be. A lot of people are.
You think he plays the second game of the back-to-back?
I guess if he plays, I hope it's Paul
then.
George.
Yeah, it is a bold take. I like it.
No, you stick with that.
Yeah, you got to stick
with it. Yeah, Paul George is going to go for 30 and 40 in those 2 games, and then he's going to rest against the Rockets. They play a 3 and 4. It's a lot. It's a lot of travel. Friendly reminder for everyone: the game against the Timberwolves is at 12:30 tomorrow. Not in our stadium, but it's still a brunch game, which I honestly am more offended by, scheduling wise. Those brunch games are ours. They're the Clippers. They're no one else's. No one else gets to do this.
We suffer. We
suffer alone. Coming up, we're going to be talking the March record predictions. There's a Twitter user who is infinitely more optimistic than I am when it comes to March. We're going to talk about that. If you're listening to this, the ads have been loud for some people. So if that's been the case for you, go ahead and turn it down. We're talking overall March record after these potentially very loud ads in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, it's Clips and Dip. I'm Adam Moslem. We got Chuck Mockler and Will Updike in a live here, but you may be listening to this in podcast form later on. This is episode 56 of season 2. Coming up in this very segment, I believe we'll offer some positive thoughts about the Clippers, but also we have a new giveaway that just popped up. But before that, Chuck and I talked about it last time out. Is it time for those March predictions? We're 1 game in now, 16 left to go in the next 30 days. Chuck, you are the proprietor of March Madness in the Clippers version. Do you want to give us your prediction first?
Sure. I will give the Twitter user Tabula Rasa 89, who I think listened to Will. He listened to you and I in the Locked On Clips days. He said 14-3 for the Clippers in March.
Well, he's off to a good start.
Hey, I'll tell you what, he's off to a good start. I don't know if I'm at 14-3. I don't know if I'm that
15-2, huh?
Yeah. I'm thinking I said 11-6 on Twitter, and I'm gonna amend that to 12-5. I think 12-5, it's a very difficult schedule. There's 4 sets of back-to-backs or something like that. Yeah, I know, Will. I know, man. I think, and I'd be happy with 12-5. I wouldn't be pissed off at 12-5. That's a great record over 17 games in March. JJ the boy is saying 17. I'm not saying 7. Everyone
they're 1,000 so far. They're batting.
They're right there
in March.
17-0, you cowards.
But 12-5, I think, is realistic. Even maybe quasi a little bit optimistic. Adam,
it's going to be like the December to remember from that team back in 2014 or 2013?
Oh, yeah. Where are you at, Adam?
I'm going to take what you originally said and go 11-6, which I also think is a very good record considering how tough the month is for this team. It's the 3-4, the back-to-back, and then the Houston Rockets after that. So just judging by the schedule and now things being upended with Russell Westbrook being out, I would take 11-6. I would. This is one of the toughest months in the history of Clippers basketball. I'm sure it has to be. Luckily, they got a team that we hope is built for it, but they got to get the split at least in the next 2, and then win in Houston, I think, just to get off to a good start here. That would put them at 3-1.
Yeah, 3 and run in the first 4. I would love that. That would be great. And then they just have, Bucks, Bulls, Bucks, Timberwolves.
Portland twice.
Portland. So that's the thing. They got Portland twice. They got Charlotte.
Orlando's good now, so you can't overlook that.
Like the Hawks.
Hawks without Trae Young.
Yeah, so there's they should
Chicago
win those
twice.
games. Yeah.
They actually,
Are you going 17-0?
actually 18-0. Somehow they're squeezing out an extra victory. No,
They had a game.
I'm going to stick with 11-6.
Will, what are you going with? Adam is not optimistic. He picked worse than me.
That's not bad.
Well, I
It's
picked
one
12
game
and 5.
difference.
I picked 12-5. I can make all the difference.
You picked against you. You had
I
11-6.
I adjusted my own. Will, where are you going?
I'll be optimistic. 13-4.
13-4. Same time. Wow, serendipitous.
Spoken into existence.
13
My hand up his ass.
13-4 puts the Clippers are 2 games away from the 3 seed right now. They go 13-4. I'm liking how they're positioned to maybe take.
Well, just when you pulled up that schedule,
like,
when you pulled up that schedule, the timing is super brutal.
I can pull it up again. Give me 1 sec. So sorry, guys. Let me reshare. So sorry.
Go ahead and enhance on that.
Go ahead and bring that up. Thanks.
Use the highlighter as well.
Like, it's a super rough start. And then, I mean, you have some tough games in there. Obviously, the Pels. But there's some teams where they should be able to stack up some wins.
This stretch right here.
That stretch right there. I mean,
Wasn't that for having to play Milwaukee and Minnesota in back-to-back games twice? Wouldn't be that bad. If it wasn't for just one of the most brutal schedules ever.
but yeah, Hornets, Kings.
Philly, is Embiid going to be back by then? That
that's
could
kind of
be right
mysterious,
around
too.
the time that he could be available.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I don't want to face Embiid in his return to the court. Would be
although minutes restriction probably.
Yeah. For Shizzle Dizzle asking that, is Embiid playing for those 2 games? No idea. Couldn't tell you. Probably based on Clippers' luck, right? We can assume that he'll probably be in one of those games.
Clippers' luck. The real problem is it's not just how difficult the schedule is. It's that they have the most difficult schedule left, likely because of March, over the 3 teams that are above them in the standings in the West.
Right.
That's what makes it so difficult to get back in, and why this little rut they've been in could be proved to be very consequential.
Alan Ning is saying Will's overly optimistic. That's the first time someone said that on this pod.
People say that about me all the time.
Do we need a fun meter check-in?
He's just too much. He's too much of a ray of sunlight sometimes.
Oh yeah, should we do it? What's the Updike fun check? 1 game into March. I think I'm having not a super amount of fun right now.
Yeah, I'm not really having too much fun.
They just won by like 25, guys. What's the problem?
Hey, there were some losses in that game. Junction says, I think a lot of success this month depends on Zubac getting back to form. Could not agree more. Played gigantic teams this month. It's going to be very important.
I'm hoping that he was out against the Wizards like I thought Paul George would be, because they wanted to give him a little bit extra rest. They could afford to against Washington. Clearly, it worked out that way because they knew he is going to be maybe their second most, third most important player the next
defense,
2 ball games.
Our second most important player for like the rest of the season, probably.
Yeah. So that's my hope. That's my ray of sunshine, silver lining, optimism, BS.
I'm on Team Carl. He needs to keep washing his hands and he needs to keep drinking as much emergency as he possibly can, and stay inside.
Not too much.
Not too much. That's a good call. Don't take zinc on an empty stomach, Zoo, please. All right, let's get into this giveaway. I believe we have a giveaway for the people, but it's very complicated. We're going to have Adam explain it.
It's not complicated. It's like how every video giveaway is done. We have a Russell Westbrook bobblehead from last night. Yes, Clippers luck. It's unfortunate he gets hurt on bobblehead night. We're hoping for the best with Russ and a speedy recovery. So we're going to drive viewership and listenership up a little bit here. This is how you win the bobblehead. We're going to give away a keyword. There's going to be 3 of them. They're going to be scattered throughout maybe 3 of our next 5 episodes. Today's keyword is heart, we'll say, since I'm looking at Russell Westbrook here. Today's keyword is heart. We're going to give away 2 more in upcoming episodes. Could be on a YouTube, could be on a Clips and Double Dip. You got to be listening. When you have all 3, you put that into the comment section on YouTube. If you're first, you win the bobblehead. Simple enough.
It's that easy. Keyword 1, heart. Keyword 1 is heart. Write that down.
Heart.
Heart. H-E-A-R-T, not H-A-R-T. Correct?
Yeah.
Just double checking. I don't know. You're the gatekeeper.
We do miss Isaiah Hartenstein, but
somebody puts all of these in the comment section and we just hit them with the drink more Ovaltine.
The Russ bobblehead, the Clippers and their bobblehead. So the James Harden bobblehead is going to have seemingly like a real beard scenario on it. And then the Russ one, you can take his shirt off and put a tank. It's so weird.
Well, he's a fashionista. He's a big fashion guy, so they want you to dress him up.
No, I get that, but they made someone put abs on the bobblehead, which is hilarious.
Be accurate.
It's so funny.
That could be the next keyword.
Yeah, that's true. Abs. We were talking about benching the other day. Carl Tart also says he could bench more than Chet Holmgren, which I think we believe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. See? Oh, whoa. Junction saying you can take his shirt off. Hart is right. Exactly. So that's the first word. There's going to be 2 more. Maybe we'll do them on the double dip. That might be too difficult, though.
That's what I'm. No. We'll probably.
No.
There's a good chance. You never know. But it's within the entire Clips and Dip ecosystem. So it could be through a double dip. If you're listening, we'll give away a keyword. It could be back here on a YouTube live. It could be on a YouTube podcast version. You just got to be watching. You got to be listening.
I'm going to write these down so I don't forget it. Could be skywriting. We don't know. It could be. Clips and Dip. No.
Written in the wind, like the Lion King thing that spells out sex. Like
there we go. Exactly like that. We mentioned the double dips. Will, what are the double dips? What are we talking about? We're going to have them after these back-to-backs.
A double dip is when either myself or Charles joins Adam over at AM 570, who Adam brings you your pre and post game every Clippers game. If you didn't already know that, he does so with heart.
Hell yes. We're going to be with you guys after both games,
no
matter what happens. Nothing up here. All in here. There's nothing up here from us.
Smooth brains, big hearts. That's Clips and Dip.
Bro, smooth brains, big hearts, can't lose is so good. And Will, where can people find if they maybe want, if say they're catching this for the first time, they want to hear some of our audio episodes, where could they do that?
Yeah, so you can check out every episode of this podcast and the aforementioned double dips over on our podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts, is Clips and Dip. We're on, Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you listen there, you should leave a little rating or review for us. It helps us out. But you can check it out on any audio podcast platform. You can also check us out over on YouTube. That's at Clippers Podcast. We're actually live on this one right now. So if you've been hearing, where are all these great comments coming from these smart Clips and Dip listeners? It's happening over on YouTube. You could be one of those smart listeners interacting with the show. So thank you so much to everybody who's been listening, who's been watching. We really appreciate it. And let's get at least one win out of this back-to-back, huh? How about that, fellas?
Let's get at least one. I was going to ask for the Adam positivity, but I think Will just brought it. Will is what's called overly positive this episode.
Yeah, I'm out of a job.
Adam's out of a job.
Who needs me?
Tune in next week to see if Adam gets his job back, I guess, for this one small part of the pod. Unless you have something you'd like to rebuke with your positivity, Adam.
I'll fight positivity with more positivity here. Paul George, guys, as much as we were down on him and talking about how he should take maybe a game off here and there, took 2 off, and it looked like it worked. what a difference taking a couple of games off makes. The way he shook Landry Shamet, one of our favorites, in that ball game and went by him for a layup, and just the confidence he had leaning into his shots and shot making and tough shot making, but just getting there quickly. Quick strike Paul George is one of my favorite versions of Paul George. I think we found out very quickly that the injury isn't something that is going to take away part of his abilities or part of his powers out there. And he can still get back to his peak of his powers by the time the playoffs start. Because last night, if that's an indication and he can build off of that, even if he's getting more rest here and there, Paul George is still Paul George. We found that out last night.
We found it out last night. Fantastic positivity from both of the two other co-hosts. I was negative this episode. Not usually how it goes, but it's raining in LA, so weird things are happening. We thank everyone for hanging out on the stream. Thank you for listening. And yeah, we'll be back with the double dips and a full episode Tuesday or something like that. As always, let's go Clippers.